Your alternative talk radio contact. The Planet. KGRAradio.com.
With infinite complacence, people went to and fro of the earth about their little affairs, serene in the assurance of their dominion over this small, spinning fragment of solar driftwood, which by chance or design, man has inherited out of the dark mystery of time and space.
Welcome to another edition of Into the Fray. First, thanks for being here. If you enjoy ITF, please rate and review it in Apple Podcasts. This helps others find it, which turns into more people with encounters for me to interview. If you'd like more content than the free weekly edition, go to intothefrayradio.com and click Become an Insider. It's only $4.99 a month or $54 for an entire year. And if you have an encounter you'd like to share, email me at shannon@intothefrayradio.com. If you've got shorter stories, feel free to call the hotline, 877-317-9111. You can call that anytime, toll free. My first book, Beyond the Fray Bigfoot, co-authored with best-selling author G. Michael Hoff, is available on Amazon in both paperback and Kindle editions. Once you're finished, please take a moment to leave a rating and review. For signed and personalized copies, send $19.99 via PayPal, free shipping within the U.S. only, to beyondthefrayllc@gmail.com. Besides Beyond the Fray Bigfoot, we now have Beyond the Fray Paramalgamation up for pre-order on Amazon right now. As hinted in the title, of course, it is paranormal stories. All kinds of them. It is an amalgamation. They are extremely difficult to classify in any one category of the paranormal. What is wonderful about this book, it is some of my favorites from the show, plus many will be included that you will have not heard on the show. And if you have any encounters that you'd like in an upcoming volume of Beyond the Fray, shoot me an email, shannon@intothefrayradio.com, or you can even just open your smartphone, talk into any kind of recording app, and email me that file. Be as detailed as you can in your story, of course. Any questions? Again, just email me, shannon@intothefrayradio.com. And last but not least, Jeff and I have created Beyond the Fray Publishing. So, if you've got a book you'd like us to publish for you, send us an email at info@beyondthefraypublishing.com. For general questions and information on us, visit our website, beyondthefraypublishing.com. Books we consider will need to be in the genres cryptid, paranormal, or true crime, both fiction and nonfiction. Thanks again, and that will do it for now. So, on to the show. Thank you so much for getting in contact with me. I mean, did you kind of do so because you did hear some of those other stories that have been shared recently that had similarities?
Yeah, a little bit, and I just kind of thought, hey, I've had a lot of weird stuff happen over the years, and I just kind of wanted to share and see. I don't know, I just kind of wanted to put it out there, I guess.
No, that's great. Thank you for doing so. Wherever you want to start, Alex, I know that this began really with your mom, right? She would actually see a shadow person when she was little that she named the Dark Man.
Yeah, so she lived on a road. She lived with, of course, her siblings, and she shared a room with her youngest sister, and she would, they slept, I guess, across from each other, and she would wake up in the middle of the night, and she'd look over and see this dark, I guess, mass over her sister, and at one point, I would, look over at her with, she described them as red eyes, and she always felt horrible, horrible fear. And then it would disappear into the closet. And that's why she always was terrified of closets growing up. And that's, I guess, where it sort of started in our family. I'm not sure if it's related to what's happening to me, but it's, shadow people.
And why would it go into the closet, of all places? I mean, wouldn't it be better if it at least walked out the door? But no, it has to go into the closet of the same room that she's sleeping in, right? So
yeah.
Something interesting that you said in the email was that she was always, of course, scared of closet doors, even as an adult when, you were a kid, and she did not want them open at all. So that means that all the doors had to be shut, right?
Yeah, even in my room, if she'd come into my room as a kid, she would close them. She'd make sure all closet doors were closed. It's only gotten better in recent years. She's only just gotten over her phobia of closet doors.
Did you, as a kid, though, your mom comes in your room and she closes your closet door and, whatever other closet doors are around, did you know why at that point?
No, I never really knew why. I just kind of blamed it off because I kind of figured she was superstitious or there's some weird paranoid things. She does have little quirks. I just kind of blamed it off. I'm like, okay, that's just a weird thing my mom does. And I never figured it out until I overheard a conversation of her explaining it to her dad.
So I know that your parents divorced when you were very young. And then, of
Yeah.
course, you spent time at both houses. But at each house, you personally had a very different experience. For each house was very different as far as what was going on. So kind of, set the stage as far as between the two houses, what the differences were.
Yeah, so my grandparents' house, when we first lived, my mom lived up at my grandparents' house for the first 4 years, I like to say, in my life. We never had any problems, which is, you'd think we would because it was near Red Rocks, and it was their burial grounds, Native American burial grounds, ceremonial grounds. Some houses had lots of paranormal activity, but the only thing we ever had was most likely my aunt who had passed before I was even born. So, and it was always very light, you never felt physically afraid for yourself. It was always, hey, look, it's probably my aunt, you just like, oh yeah, it's Ginger doing this, or it was never something you were afraid of. It was always either funny or you felt safe because of what the activity was happening. My dad's house, I don't remember a whole lot as a young child, but as years went on, things started getting very, very dark and very heavy. And just by the time I moved out, I felt scared to live there. I didn't, for multiple reasons, but one of them was the activity. It felt like it wanted to harm me.
Yeah, and what sorts of things were going on during the first stages of this at your dad's house? And then kind of describe some of the progression that was going on there.
Well, at first it was just, you'd hear things fall over in the basement, you think, oh, it's just something was too close to the edge. My grandma was kind of a hoarder, so she'd probably just left something too close to the edge on a shelf, even though it made no sense for it to fall, it was just something, a breeze blew, something mundane. I guess it's kind of hard to remember, but it kind of progressed a while. After a while, we started hearing, I guess, doors would open randomly, like our furnace doors would open in the middle of the night, and you would just be like, that's kind of weird, but maybe a breeze blew that one open. And then by the time I was about 12 in middle school, we started having like the back door, which my grandfather was religiously paranoid about closing. It would open in the middle of the night, and we weren't sure why.
Was your dad aware of all of these goings on, or were you guys just kind of trying to be like, oh, it's nothing, just close the door, go back to bed?
He was. All of them were aware, but they kind of just blew it off. And I always like to try and at least explain it, but a lot of it started to get kind of hard to explain, you know, especially when it went on to, I had a sleep recorder because I used to sleep talk, and I recorded, you know, like heavy knocking all around. And like I got my closet door opening, ironically enough. And that was horrifying to hear.
I bet, considering the history, right?
Yeah. You know, you hear knocking, doors opening, my closet door opening. And sometimes you hear weird, like, just walking around upstairs, even though nobody really gets up. So it was just a whole lot of activity. But then the biggest things that stood out were people started seeing shadows. And the one biggest that kind of scared me was when the sister oldest to me, she was sleeping in my bedroom, and we always have the door open. And she swore up and down that she watched me walk down the hall to my father's bedroom while I was asleep on the bed behind her.
And I mean, what did you make of that? I mean, can you make anything out of that?
I'm not really sure. It was just, I don't know why something, whatever it was imitating me, but it was just, she swore, and, you know, my other sister was like, no, Alex was behind you asleep, and, you know, but she swore up and down. She watched me walk down the hall towards my dad's bedroom.
And how many times did that happen? Was it just once?
It was twice, I think, over a few years.
And was it always you walking down the hallway?
Yeah, it was either towards my dad's bedroom or away from. It was always down the same hallway past this. It was a flat wall face.
So how about these sleep hallucinations, as you called them?
Yeah, we still aren't fully sure what those are. I'm not sure. You know, I've talked to therapists about those. I've talked to my neurologist about them. But basically, I would wake up in the middle of the night with even this recorder going, and it was like I'm awake but asleep. I was aware of my surroundings enough to see everything and interact with everything and move about freely, but I couldn't. I felt like I was still in a dream because I felt like something wanted to harm me. It wanted me dead, basically, and I knew it wanted me dead unless I was able to open this door and get light into my room. And that was the only way I was ever able to feel any relief from this nightmare, it felt like. And I've never been able to figure out exactly what was going on with it.
So what were some of the explanations that the neurologist and any therapist that you talked to?
You know, my therapist told me, said she wanted to do a sleep study, but none of them have. You just kind of said, you know, we don't really know what's going on. It's just kind of you're very active sleeper. That's all they said. Is they had no explanations for me when I asked, because, you know, at the time when I was talking to them, they were afraid I had a brain tumor.
Oh,
but
gosh.
I don't. So
that must have been terrifying. One of them actually said, brought up a possible brain tumor.
Yeah. I was also having chronic migraines, but after a scan, that was ruled out. So.
Oh, that was a scary time, I bet.
Yes.
So what about something like sleep paralysis? You know, you hear people throwing that term around too. Do you feel like that would fall into the same category at all? Do you feel like this is different?
I've thought about that. I'm not fully sure, you know, because I've never had sleep paralysis, but I was able to move fully. My mother does have sleep paralysis, but it was, you know, I don't know if it was anything related to sleep paralysis, because I was just able to move so freely. I was never held down. It was just that feeling of fear. I was, you know, awake but asleep. It sounds so weird to explain, I guess. I always feel so weird talking about it. It was just this deep feeling of fear, like I was stuck in a nightmare, but I was able to interact and see my environment around me so clearly. It's always so hard to explain. I feel crazy.
No, not at all. Not at all. I'm sure it was very hard to actually, you know, then you're probably up after that And then the next night you're like, I really don't feel like going to sleep. Darndest thing, right?
Right.
So here's where things really take a turn for you, right? And that's actually, I think it was 2018. You said you finally left that house, but you feel like whatever was there followed you.
Yes. I left the house and I went to live with my mom, but things started happening over at my mom's house, even though nothing had really happened there. I would be sleeping in the house or alone in the house, and I'd start hearing footsteps upstairs, which had never happened before here. I'd think, okay, maybe it's a dog. But then I'd look over and one of the dogs was downstairs with me, or I'd hear, scraping upstairs. I'm like, and I'd ask, what were you doing upstairs? I was asleep. Oh, okay. Just weird little stuff like that started happening, and it was just, okay, I guess that's kind of weird, but I brushed it off until I found a picture frame of me turned fully upside down. Like it couldn't have been knocked down. It was like somebody had picked it up and turned it upside down in its frame.
Oh, okay. Okay. So reading the email, I didn't understand. It was still inside the frame, like the frame was sitting the same way, but the picture inside the frame was flipped upside down.
Yeah. Like the frame was laying on it. Like somebody picked up the frame and, hard to explain without seeing it, but they picked it up and turned it so the frame was upside down.
Oh, okay. Okay. I got you. All right. Sorry. I was thinking, all right. I was thinking something else. I apologize. And also, the scraping noise upstairs is way worse, I think, than hearing footsteps. Maybe that's just me in my mind, and watching too many movies, but a scraping noise, I don't know. I
guess I wasn't so worried because I'm under my brother's bedroom, so I'm kind of used to it. But until I realized my brothers weren't up there, it kind of did get me, it was a little bit more worrying when I realized my brothers weren't up there.
Yeah. And then what the heck's the scraping? Like what was doing the scraping and what was it scraping on?
Yeah, I've never been able to figure that one out.
So something interesting that I found in your email was the fact that the common denominator is your dog. Your dog reacts to this stuff. So, when you're talking about a sleep paralysis situation or something like that, that's usually just all in your head, and people could diminish something going on, but your dog seems to react to, well, let's just go ahead and say it, you actually have finally, unfortunately, laid eyes on this entity, right? So can we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so there was one night I had about, I guess, 2 months after I had finally settled in, I had gone to bed about 10 o'clock at night because I was just tired. But I had gone to bed and I was just laying there, and not even an hour had passed when I heard, this is part of it too, when in my dream, I distinctly hear somebody whisper, "You need to wake up." And I snap awake to my dog growling, and I look up to this massive, like this dark person standing over me. And I, jolted because I'm like, who's standing over me? And I immediately, searched for my phone to turn on the flashlight, shine it up, and went out of my room because I'm like, who's in my room? And I just remember my dog, chasing after me because he didn't want to be with it, with whatever it was. And afterwards, my stepdad searched closets, everywhere that somebody could hide, because we have, those old 70s type windows that make a lot of racket when you open them.
Right.
Nothing was open or nobody was anywhere. So we couldn't figure out what I had just seen other than, whatever had attached itself to me.
How did it feel to actually see something?
Growing up being fascinated by the paranormal, I always thought it'd be cool, but I was terrified. I was not happy with it. I was, sitting upstairs shaking. I was terrified.
So you described it as massive. Can you go into a little bit more detail about exactly what you saw?
Kind of, I was I had a bunk bed at the time, and I came up to maybe the top rung of it, and it was well over it. So I was maybe 6 foot, maybe 3, I guess, by the size, by how it measured up to me. And the bunk bed, it was huge based on, what I can remember. It was just this huge dark shadow, and it was just standing over me. I felt like it was staring at me, even though I couldn't, see any eyes or any features. It was dark because I couldn't tell if it was because my room was dark or because it was just that way. It was just.
Was it one of the more amorphous kind of blob shadows, or was it one of those skinny shadow figures?
It was kind of amorphous. I guess it was, you could sort of make out a shape to it, but it was definitely very broad. It was tall and broad, and it was, standing over me. And I was just like, what's that?
And so in your mom's, in her quote-unquote dark man encounters, when she would see it, did it always have the red eyes?
Yeah, from what she told me, I don't know how many times she saw it, but it would generally look over at her. When it would actually look at her, it had the red eyes, Now,
you did mention that you ended up saging, right? And that seemed to help a little bit?
For a while, yeah, it did help. Because, there was just a lot that followed me, and I just wanted to sage because I thought that would help. And it did for quite a while. The activity quieted down up until recently when I started having respiratory issues.
Now, what do you think that is? Like, what's coming first, the chicken or the egg? So, I mean, are you having respiratory issues, you're saying, because this thing is back around, or somehow you being sick is letting it in more? What's the connection there, do you think?
I'm not sure. I've always had asthma, and I'm not sure if it's just it getting worse that's letting it back, or it could be that it coming back that's making it worse. And, it's just,
right.
It's hard to.
Right. No, yeah, totally. That's why I word it like that, because it could definitely be either or, right? So what kinds of things have been going on lately, Alex, in your house?
Well, I have 2 rats, and they kind of sometimes, when I have things, my room will get really, really cold, which is weird because generally it gets pretty hot when I have the heater on, but randomly it'll get really, really cold, and my dog and my rats all at the same time will kind of go crazy, and it just feels really odd, specifically in my room, and it's just a different feeling, and that's one of the things.
You have rats as well?
Yes, I do.
I love rats. We had some rats here for quite a long time, and they are awesome pets. People just assume they're dirty and not smart, and that is so not true in either case. So they should read up more on rats, shouldn't they?
Yes.
I remember you mentioning, so you mentioned the cold room. I think you said there was more of the footsteps, and also, again, the dog is reacting, right? Which must raise the hackles on you, because that happened when you saw the shadow actually standing over you. And if you don't want to talk about this, that's fine. But it was in the email, so I can cut this out if you do not want to talk about it. But you said you actually saw it again, and it got a lot closer this time.
Yeah, the other day, I was rushing because I had fallen down the stairs, and I was just in bed, and I had fallen asleep, and all of a sudden, my dog started, getting that sort. He's very defensive of me, and he started doing that thing where he presses up against me, and he starts, raising his hackles, growling at things, and I open my eyes, and I see it, and this time it wasn't a shadow, because it was midday, and it was pretty horrifying to look at, and I don't fully know if it was all in my head or if it was just kind of, it was still black, but it clearly had a defined shape.
Alex, is there something banging around back there? Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
I didn't
that's
know you
okay.
could hear that.
No, that's okay. No problem.
That is my dog.
You're like, I am keeping the dog close, dang it, because if something's around, I want to know it, right?
This time it was still quite just as big, and it was making its way over me, like it was trying to climb on the bed over me. And I could, I wasn't paralyzed, so it wasn't sleep paralysis, but it had like horns. It was very horns. It was just horrifying to look at, and I felt very, I don't know what to do. It was just, I don't know how to put into words what this thing was that was making its way.
Uh-oh, the dog's barking. No, it's okay. It's like, I know what you're talking about. I'm going to go get it. I mean, what happened though? Did you run out of the room, or what was the culmination of that incident?
It just kind of, I ended up walking, I did the same thing. I pushed out of the bed, ran out of the room. I just, ended up sitting outside because this time I saw it and I was home alone because my mom was out of the house. And I just, there's nobody here to help me. So I just sat outside for quite a while. And it was, sorry about that.
No, you're okay. Yeah. Do your mom and dad, do they know what's going on? Are they aware of everything?
Yeah, I talked to my mom about most things. I haven't told her about this most recent incident because I'm not fully sure how to bring it up to her, but they're aware about most of the things that have happened.
Now, when you were living at your dad's and all that stuff was going on, obviously he was aware of some stuff, but did he himself have any experiences in the home?
By the time I left, he was starting to believe because he told me he was home alone and he started hearing footsteps and he thought my grandparents were home. Even when we were starting, no contact, he texted me, are you here to pick up your stuff? And I guess he thought somebody was there. So he was starting to, things were starting to happen to even him. And I guess there was an incident where the police were called because the attic was open. You had to get up on the ladder and push the attic open. But the police said there's no way without somebody, they found nobody, but no one was there. So
that's pretty scary when you actually go that far to have somebody come look around in the house, right? Because you think there's an intruder.
Yeah.
But it must be kind of a relief, though, to know that it's happening to other people, right?
Yeah.
Alex, what about, since it did, in fact, begin with your mother before you, not that it began with her, but do you know of anything in your family's past or anything in passing that someone might have said to be a hint as to why an entity like this might be attached to your family?
The best I can think is because we've always kind of said things that happen are because we do have a lot of history of mental health issues. And the best we can gather is the things that happened over my dad's are because there was a lot of negativity in the house. So even though the land had no history, the house was brand new, built brand new, it was probably because there's so much negative stuff happening. We kind of figured that was why. And, my mom's mom had a DID, and that's probably why, that could have been why that sanity started in that house. Other than that, I'm not fully sure why any of the things have happened.
I'm sorry, Alex, I missed that. What did your mom's mom have?
She had DID, but dissociative identity disorder.
Oh, gotcha. Do you know if your mom's mom had any instances of anything strange?
I'm sure she has. I haven't asked her specifically, but I don't think she's had I don't think she's ever seen the Dark Man or anything.
Because the family history a lot of times is really important, as you know. And obviously you're really up on this stuff because you did Sage and it did work for a while, right?
Yeah.
Are you looking to up the battle game a little bit and see what you can do next to rid yourself in the home of this entity? Possibly,
because I tried Saging again, but I still, issues are still happening, so I'm not fully sure what to do this time. I've been looking into seeing what I can do next.
Do you mind me asking how old you are?
I'm 18.
Because one of the things that I said in the email was, it was my first, I think, response back to you, is that your story, it is, of course, very important. All these stories are important because it's so personal to everybody, and anybody that's been through anything strange and it's kind of life-changing, even if it was only once, it's important. So I recently had on, like I said, a few different people that are going through a lot of things, even in their own homes. And I kind of put the call out for people, and they're going to listen to this and do the same thing. You know, if you guys out there, you've been through something like this, and you know of ways to help Alex and her family, especially Alex, because it sounds like it's really honed in on you. Get in touch with me, please, because I'm going to be in touch with Alex after this. You sound actually really pretty lighthearted about it and positive, to be honest with you, but you have to be kind of freaked out, right?
Yeah, I hope it doesn't do anything too bad, I've had a lot happen other than this, so, I hope it doesn't get to the level that it does something to my people other than me is what I'm worried about.
You see, that's, yeah, and how selfless of you. You're just like, well, I just don't want it to affect other people. You're awesome. And I've heard that from other people too. They're like, just focus on me. Don't take it out on other people. Have you ever had friends over, for a sleepover or just to watch a movie, and they've had anything taken out on them, or they've experienced anything?
Not that I know of. If they've had anything happen to them, besides, seeing, little things nothing's happened directly to them, they've just seen the little things that'll happen around the house, and they'll be like, that's kind of weird. I'm like, yeah, okay. But I'm thankful nothing's happened to them.
Okay. So this thing doesn't really mind an audience at all. Like, it doesn't just save it for you or the dog to bark at, right? It doesn't matter who's around, really. No,
it doesn't. It'll just kind of do its thing. You'll move things or push things over. It doesn't really matter who's around or when.
How often is it able to actually physically affect something? Like, it flip the picture upside down, or it will knock something off of a cabinet. How often does it do that? Is that a daily occurrence?
Not anymore, but it was starting to get to the point, it would, pushing things over or moving things, or sometimes I'd just, I'd say, hey, there's a black hole in our house, because I lose little things that I absolutely need. Like, I was losing inhalers, which I absolutely need, clearly, all the time.
It would move your inhalers, of all things. Like it knew
that
you needed it.
And because I keep them in very specific places because I need them, and it would move them from those places, and I'd never be able to find them again.
You never find them again?
Nope, they'd be gone.
Because occasionally you hear either they're gone forever, or they'll just show up in really weird places that you would never put them. So that's never happened. They're just, if they leave, they're gone.
Yeah. With inhalers, yes, they'd be gone completely. With remotes or, little things that I kind of, mundane things that I kind of need or kind of want, they'd come back. But inhalers, they'd be gone.
Wow. It's actually pretty demented. And kind of scary if you have asthma. Well, anybody listening to this, obviously, it's a call to action here for Alex, because even though, yes, in this other case for the show, we tried this, and this, in your case, it might be a little bit different according to what you shared, but I'm sorry you're going through all this. I mean, being in your own home, it's just not cool.
Sometimes I worry about going over to someone else's house and bringing it over, so I kind of tend to be a recluse because I'm afraid of, hurting somebody else.
And you're 18. You're supposed to be, you going to your friend's house and hanging out, and I'm sorry to hear that. What do you think it is?
Part of me is worried that it's, a demonic thing, because, the house I live in was just so negative. It was, the things that went on were that horrible that it could have been, demonic, but I don't know what other name to put to it. I don't want to be all dramatic and say, hey, it was a demon, but, I don't, the best name I put to it is an entity, because I don't, want to be so dramatic and say it was a demon.
Right.
Because it doesn't do anything else. It's not like the other episode, it wasn't an incubus or succubus. It's just an entity that kind of, sometimes it does, I feel horribly tired, even though I've tried a lot of things to help with that, but I don't know if that's related, or, I don't know what all is going on. So I don't know what it is, and I don't know a lot of things. It's just, I don't know what name to put to it.
Besides recently, because obviously it seems like it's ramping up again, which is worrisome. What age were you when you would classify it as, kind of like the last wave of really bundled up activity, like it was stronger? Like, what age were you when that was going on, do you think?
I guess it really started when I was about 15, and then ended when I was about 16 or 17 before I saged a house.
So it's been a while since you saged, right? Have you thought about just trying that again and seeing if a simple sage and maybe telling it to leave you alone might work?
I saged pretty recently. It was about a month, or not a month ago. It was a little bit ago, but I sage pretty frequently because I just don't like the negative feeling if I don't sage pretty regularly.
But right now it's not seeming to help very much.
No, unfortunately.
Well, yeah, thank you so much for, of course, getting in contact with me and for sharing your story.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. Thank you for talking to me.
Well, I'm so-and-so. I was given this name by my parents. I've been to such and such a college. I've done these things in my profession. I produce a little fire. Buddha says, forget it. That's not true. That's some story. That's all gone. That's all past. I want to see the real you are now. Well, nobody knows who that is. Because we don't know ourselves except through listening to our echoes and consulting our memories. And then there's a real you, and that again leads us back to this question. Who are you? That is the real you. We shall see how they play with this exam by the cohorts to get you to come out of your shell and find out who you really are. They will say, no, we don't believe literally in reincarnation. That after your funeral, you will suddenly become somebody different, living somewhere else. They will say reincarnation means this, that if you sitting here now are really convinced that you're the same person who walked in at the door half an hour ago, you're being reincarnated. If you are liberated, you will understand that you're not. The past doesn't exist. The future doesn't exist. There is only the present. That's the only real you that there is. The Zen master Dogen put it in this way. He said, spring does not become the summer. First there is summer, and then there is spring. When you settle down in the train to read your newspaper and so on, you are not the same person who a little while ago left the platform. If you think you are linking your moments up in a chain. And this is what binds you to the wheel of birth and death. But when you know that every moment in which you are is the only moment, this comes into Zen. The master will say to somebody, "Now get up and walk across the room." And he comes back and he says, "Where are your footprints?" They've gone. So where are you? Who are you? When we are asked who we are, we usually give a kind of recitation of a history.